Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities and Music. Today, to end our set of filming that we're doing today, we're going to review Bon Iver's first album, For Emma Forever Ago. The reason why we're reviewing this is really since we reviewed last year when we reviewed Bon Iver's second album, his self-titled release. And it got a lot of comparisons. A lot of people were loving it, and a lot of people didn't like it at all because they were comparing it to For Emma Forever Ago. And we realized that, Tom and I both, listen to this album and like it. We realized we have a unique perspective since we reviewed Bon Iver first, but since Velocities and Music wasn't around when For Emma Ago really hit the scene and was re-released, we have a unique perspective that now we can go back and kind of compare For Emma Forever Ago to the Bon Iver's second album. There's a piece of fuzz flying right in front of my face.
I'm getting that too.
and we have this, that perspective that we can give you guys about how the albums are different and what makes them unique in their own ways, because I feel like that they both have some really strong aspects to them that make them wholly different albums to me, with some obvious similarities. But to dig into that, to give you backstory about For Emma Forever Ago, if you're not on the Bon Iver train or bandwagon yet, which the story about this album is actually quite neat. Essentially, Justin Vernon just had a complete catastrophe in his life. He got mono, broke up with a band, broke up with a girl, a bunch of bad stuff happened to him. So he moved, decided that he was going to try to heal his inner self. So he moved from, I think, Virginia, where he was at the time, and he moved to northern Wisconsin, which is a smart play in my mind, because it's the home of the Green Bay Packers. What better way? Anyways, so he moves to the northern Wisconsin to kind of just in a log cabin that his dad or somebody in his family owned, and he brought a whole bunch of just basic studio equipment, nothing super special, and he just fleshed out this album. And For Emma Forever Ago, where he was mostly just building, just simple tracks. Later on, he sent some of these, got signed by a small record company, made like 500 copies of his album, and it started getting some buzz. So eventually, they added some more stuff to it, some more horns, some of the later production that was added in, and you can see when you listen to For Emma Forever Ago that there's kind of a dual layer going on in the core songwriting and then the production that was put on top of it. They seem separate, which normally I wouldn't like, but it seems to work really well on the album. And then later in, like, I think 2008, this was re-released to the public to mass acclaim. Oh my God, this album was just huge, and getting to listen to it and falling in love with this album. I didn't get to listen to this until we started reviewing Bon Iver's second album, and that's what got me into this one. And I can't put this thing down. The more I listen to it, the more intimate of a listen I feel it is, and the more I want to listen to it further. And really the cool thing about it, Tom, which I was telling you right before we turned the camera on, is how it just kind of flows like a story. He tells a story emotionally. Vernon's significant advantage is his vocals. And and I'll let Tom get more into how he makes the vocals so dynamic, because you had some really good insights to the production. But to me, especially in the first track, Flume, right away he just presents this to you in a way that you just know this is really meaningful to him, and it's touching just listening to the emotion coming out of the song that you're hearing. Tom, what was your take on For Emma Forever Ago?
Well, definitely. I mean, the songwriting is so strong, but it's just good songwriting isn't enough. You have to know how to portray that songwriting and get your message across. And I think he succeeds on all accounts on this album. You spoke of the vocals, and the vocals are definitely a strong suit. And what makes it work is that, you had this very rudimentary recording setup, very old school sound. And so how does he thicken it up rather? He puts like more vocal tracks and layers than you could possibly imagine. I mean, rarely on this album does it sound like there are any less than 3 or 4 vocal tracks going on at the same time, even when there's only one guitar track. So it has this big, huge kind of like choir effect on it, because he'll have like a low harmony, he'll have the very high falsetto harmony, like a solid octave above it, and then the harmonies in between to, kind of make some different chords with his voice. So in that way, his voice ends up being used almost more as an instrument, which then you see on the Blood Bank EP, he definitely does with, songs like, well, the one that Kanye sampled, like Lost in the Woods. And so on this album, that's the highlight to me, is that he is able to have this over-the-top vocal performance and presence and still have it sound so honest, because a lot of times when you do vocal layers like that, it ends up coming off as a little watered down on the emotional side. A lot of times where you get that emotional connection from vocals is when you just hear one single voice just belting it, and because you can connect with that one individual persona. Here, there's a lot of them, yet it doesn't kill how heartfelt this album is throughout.
One of the things I loved about this album too is how he plays with different structures. He doesn't stick to just verse, chorus, verse, chorus. You know, I'm a big believer that you need to switch up your structure. If you look at track 4, The Wolves, Acts 1 and 2, that track starts off and then it completely switches and rebuilds. And all of these tracks tend to do a little bit with just messing with the structures of the tracks a little bit. It's a unique take on the sound. Now, one of the comparisons, one of the things that I heard about the criticisms I heard about Bon Iver's second album, the self-titled album, is that they didn't like how all these instruments would just kind of come in and explode. And while he did take that to another level, everyone's saying that Forever Ago is just this stripped down, just this guy playing in a cabin, and that's not true, because all the production that they put in, the end of track 4, The Wolves, and there's a couple other places on the album where the sound just kind of explodes. You still get all of that here. It's just it's produced differently because it was done in 2 different sections, and whereas Bon Iver is much more of a grandiose album. They, you know, really putting, you know, you had a whole array of instruments and all in one studio at the same time. It's 2 different stories with the same kind of just driving aspects of the music. So it's a really interesting take. What I love about this album is how alive it is. This album is an experience. It's not just an album, and it kind of transcends being just music at some point in time. And a good example of this is, and this is why I so badly want to see Bon Iver live, he passes out, or in the early days anyways, passed out lyric sheets because he realized that multi-track, to recreate that multi-tracking of the vocals, he wanted everyone in the crowd to sing along with him.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that.
That sort, like, just that understanding of what he's doing, and then that just flawless execution of it is just so refreshing.
And what a way to pull people into the experience, because that's what this album's all about. If you can't make that emotional connection to this album, then there's not really anything. That's all it is. But he does it so well that when you can reach that level, it really is a musical experience that's pretty much unrivaled today.
I feel like I have a junior high crush on this album. I really do. and that's why I didn't want to review it right away, like last summer when we reviewed Bon Iver. Like, I wanted to wait because I wanted to see if that would wear off, but it's been, you know, 9-10 months now, and I'm still loving this album. I can't get over it. So I'm going to settle. I think this is a 93. The only thing that keeps this out of like 100 range for me is that it's not perfect. There's some minor flaws here and there, and there's times where you can really see that that the songwriting isn't perfect, that it's just kind of a little underdeveloped. But that's kind of what makes it so accidentally wonderful. Kind of like, you know, accidentally wonderful albums like Turn on the Bright Lights by Interpol, or I'm sure there's some other ones I could think of, but that's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, that is one of the endearing qualities of this, is that you can tell he didn't even know he was making what will be considered a modern-day masterpiece. He was just pouring his heart out, and that's all really anyone can or should do.
Right. I'm at a 93. Where are you at?
90.
90? What do you guys think? Where are you at with this album? Which did you prefer? Did you prefer Forever Ago, or did you prefer Bon Iver's self-titled release that came out in 2011? Let us know at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. That's where we do our conversing and get to talk about all these cool albums that we review. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.